So the introduction I'm going to give you is very basic, very high level. More than half of you in your registration mentioned that you've never used APT before. So this talk is geared toward you. Never seen it. I'm going to show you the parts of the interface, tell you the lingo, show you the icons. I will not build a proposal. This is not hands-on, but if you want to open APT and follow along, it is very easy because it's just some simple clicks. So when you first open APT, this is what you see, and APT supports both HST and JWST, so you have to choose which mode you want to put it into. So there is an option for a new document, and you open that menu and choose the JWST document. And then you are now in JWST mode, and you will see all the parameters that you need to put in for JWST. This is the first page that comes up. It is your proposal information page. All the little red X's that you'll see throughout APT tell you which parameters are required that you have not yet put in or have put in incorrectly. They're errors. You don't want any red X's when you're done. The very top of the interface is called the Toolbar. APT is made up of several different tools. The first one, when you open APT, you are in the form editor, which is the one on the far left. And if you notice, the form editor, the title is in blue and the others are in black. When you switch from one tool to the next, that title will go to blue so you know which tool you're in. Over on the left side, these are all the entities in your proposal. That's called the tree editor. You may also hear people talk about the hierarchy trees, the same thing. And when you hunt through the JDocs, look for tree editor, and it will tell you what to do with that. And then whichever tool you have chosen, you will have a tool interface appropriate for that tool that you chose on the top toolbar. So this is the form editor for the proposal information. This is the interface for that. That's where we are on this one. There's also this one little line between the toolbar and the tool interface that has some links to help information. Right now, the roadmap is the thing that would tell you step by step by step what to do to create a JWST proposal. All of that documentation isn't quite ready, but it will be by the time the call for proposals goes out. But if you go there now, you'll see all the information for Hubble, and a lot of it is the same. It's very basic. The JWST instructions are coming. Okay, so your main proposal information page, this one has been filled out a little bit. There's a title, there's an abstract. The proposal ID will remain blank until you submit, and then it's automatically assigned to you, just like a lot of other observatories. Some of the information is automatically put in for defaults. Category is GO. That's a menu. You can choose other categories. The cycle is 1. There's also some little boxes to check for flags, calibration, treasury, and pure parallel, and JDocs will tell you whether or not you need to check those depending on what type of observation you're going to be requesting. I put these red arrows in because these are also expandable options, and I'm going to talk about them in just a second on the next slide. But one of the things to take note of, the science time and the charge time, they look kind of gray. You cannot enter those numbers. Those numbers are calculated by APT once you create your observations. Okay, so that's why they're gray, because they're not editable. The rest of the information you can fill out quite easily. Proprietary period will become exclusive access period in the next release. They wanted to change the wording. Scientific category you have to include, and you have to put in at least 2 science keywords. Okay, for the red arrows, when you expand those out, the first one is explain unschedulable observations. Once you make up all your observations and you run through the tools, you'll find out where they can schedule, those observations can schedule. If something will not schedule anywhere, and you know why, but it can be fixed, then you can leave it that way and explain what you're going to do. And that's just a free text box. Did I get to the wrong one? Just a free text box. Put that in. The second red arrow, as I mentioned, the science time and the charge time you can't edit. But maybe whatever you're doing in APT isn't showing exactly what you want, and you need to change the amount of time you're requesting from the TAC. An example of that would be a target of opportunity. Say you know that under certain circumstances you would want a particular observation configuration, but under different circumstances you would want a different configuration. So you might put in 2 or 3 different ones to be ready when you trigger that observation, but APT is going to charge you for every single one. You're only going to execute one of them. So you would go in and change that time to requested time and explain why. So that's just an example. You can do that. The third one is, as Jeff mentioned, you can request observations in multiple cycles. So you are filling out a proposal for the current cycle, so in this case, cycle 1. You can also, if you need observations with a long timeline, you can ask for the next cycle, and you can ask for a third cycle. You can also ask for the first and third cycle and skip the second one if you need a really long timeline. So you can ask for 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1, 2, and 3, or just 1. And that's how you do that. The very fourth, oops, I keep doing that, wrong one. Fourth one is going to go away. That was the coordinated with other observatories. This was put in before the policy was made that we're not going to do that for cycle 1, so you should not see that in the next version of APT. But it's there, so I thought I'd show you. And the one that you're doing, you can go to, yes, so if you're proposing for cycle 1, you can also propose for 2 and 3, but no more than that. And the reasoning behind that is that science is changing so much. Do you really want to propose out farther than that when maybe your focus will be on something else 4 years from now? Okay. The very bottom of this main page is where you attach the PDF. Now, you have to have a PDF to go to the TAC that is your science justification. Here, let me show you. Their templates are available at JDocs. Oh, that's not showing the whole slide. There's a science justification. Why do you need JWST to do this? How are you going to do your data analysis? And you discuss any duplications that you found. This PDF is proprietary. The TAC sees it, and some members of the Institute see it, but it is never shown to the public. So that when you're describing all of the science goals you're trying to reach, other people will not be able to see that. That has to be attached on that first page. Okay, so going through one by one, the proposal description, people that see this, there are 2 different categories of people that will see this, and you want to consider that audience. One is the TAC, but remember that you've already filled out that big PDF with all your science justification and the description of your observations, but you might want a little summary here. The TAC's going to see it. The other people that see that are the operations people at the Institute. So if you want to be a little more specific and talk about the different observations, how, if or how they interact with each other, configurations you're going to use, you can put it in here. This will be shown to the public if your proposal is approved. If it's not approved, nothing ever goes public. And then you need to put in your investigators. So in that little slot for name search, you would put in at least 4 letters, the first 4 letters of the person's last name, and you can hit return, and it does a search on our investigator database. If you've ever used Hubble, your name should be in the database. If you haven't, or you've used other observatories, we may have it in there. And you would get this list of all the names that come up that match, and you can choose one. You do the select, and then it automatically populates everything for that person. What if it's not there? So I put in Roman, but I really didn't mean Tony, even though he's here. I want somebody else. I would need to add a new investigator. So you can always choose that. Another interface pops up, and you put in that person's information, and then they're in our database, and you're good to go. Okay, targets. I'm not going to show you specifically, but you would choose the targets in the tree editor, and then there are lots of different ways to put targets in. So you can have fixed targets that you pull from another category. Or you can put them, that's the fixed target resolver, a little interface pops up. You put in the target name, you choose the catalog you want to pull it from, and it gives you the information. And you can add it. You can put in manually. There's a target group. All this is in the JDocs. Solar system targets. Generic targets, if you're doing a target of opportunity and you know the conditions you want, but you don't have any coordinates, you don't know what you're actually looking at, that's fine, you can put that in. And you can import targets from a file, that's all in documentation too. Observations, click on the new observations folder, get to add observation. All the demos that you're going to see today and tomorrow will show you how to do all this. Then there's the other tools. Once you have your targets and your observations defined, you go to the visit planner, which is the next tool in the bar, and run that. That does the guide star search, does all the scheduling constraints, tells you when your observation can be planned. If you need to or want to, you can view in Aladdin. It's a little similar to the ESAC. It has a few more options to it, but it's not as user-friendly. But it is all integrated into our software. Target confirmation, the PI is ultimately responsible for the coordinates of the target. We don't check it when it comes to the institute. We don't do anything with target coordinates. If they're wrong and you get a bad observation, sorry, you're done. So be sure you check. And that's it makes a chart that you can look at. I think they're based still on the JWST survey. So if your target isn't seen in that, then it doesn't really help you out. And then the PDF preview. There are two different PDFs you can create from this whole file. One that goes to the TAC, that includes that big PDF that you put in originally, and all the extra flags. And one that will be seen by the public if it's approved, shows the targets and the observations. So you can look at either one, both of them, doesn't matter which. Errors and warnings, I mentioned all the little red X's. There are two different ways to see the errors and warnings. If you hover your cursor over a red X, you get the little yellow box, and it gives you a quick summary of what the problem is. But if you click on the tool at the top, then you get a full description. It usually tells you how to fix the error as well as what's causing it. And the last part is the submission tool. When you go to, you're all done, you've got no more red X's, everything looks good, you've checked your target, you've checked the layout in Aladdin, whatever, all your ETC stuff, it's all good, you can submit. So, all right. I hit the wrong one, but anyway, hit the submit button, it comes to us, the TAC sees it. That's the very last one. Okay. Submit right here. You can put comments in. Once you've submitted it the first time and you get an ID number, you think you're good, you go to bed, you wake up in the middle of the night, and I named that target the wrong thing, but it's got the right coordinates. So you can go in and tweak it and resubmit it once you have that ID number. And you'll see right here it says resubmit, but it's grayed out because it hasn't been submitted yet. That becomes active once you submit the first time. And the submission log at the bottom will just show you how many times you submitted, whether or not it was successful, did it actually get to the institute, and you keep going. But that's all. Very simple.